Hello and welcome to the Seatton Education Podcast, where we delve into all things home education with expert guests from around the world. I'm Victoria. Joining me today is Helen Harrold, the co-founder of Dumb Ox Learning. We're going to be talking about the educational paths that homeschool children can take, with a focus on the high school diploma, SAT and APs. Helen, welcome.
Hi, thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Not at all. Can you start by telling us a bit about your own family and your journey into home education?
Okay, so I feel I can start with where I started from. So I had a friend who told me she was going to home educate. I thought she was mad. But oh my goodness, that must be like, why would you do that? Why would you do that? Couldn't conceive of why anyone would want to do that. But I was fascinated. I was a teacher. I had been a teacher before having kids. So I started investigating, I just started reading up about it. And then we met some homeschool families. And I mean, their kids were just different. Their kids were just so different. And it just became, I think from meeting those families and meeting those teenagers, I just thought, wow, this is good. I want to do this. And completely unexpectedly started to homeschool. So my eldest I've got 7 kids. My eldest, three of them were in school. The third one had just started. And then we decided to start homeschooling. Just pulled them all out. And, so my eldest is 29, so he was about 7, I think we pulled them out. So I've been homeschooling about 22 years and doing it all the way through to A-level, to 18.
Okay. And so that's interesting that it was meeting real life home educated kids that made you make the decision. In what way were they different? Just explain that.
I think the teenagers were happy talking to the adults. I think the teenagers were happy mixing with 5-year-olds and 7-year-olds, and there wasn't the sort of segregation that I think you often have with school kids. Everyone's kind of used to mixing with their own age group. I think the sort of familiar culture was very different. So, because the kids were spending a lot of time with their families and their families were doing lots of things together, that the kids were getting on differently, that the relationships between the siblings seemed to be very different. So between the siblings themselves and between the siblings and parents, the rhythm of life was very different because, they weren't, I think we always found school for our kids was very stressful. They weren't there very long. I think we always found that at the end of the summer holidays, they were very different to how they kind of then were during school time. But school's just quite a stressful place for a lot of kids. And just, that's why the homeschool kids we saw just didn't have that stress. And it seemed, they were just different. They were different. Their parents were different. It just seemed very appealing. So we did it.
Yeah. And so when you did start, what was the approach and the path that your children took? What was the approach you took, I suppose, as a home educating parent, and the path they took as kids?
So we, I think a lot of people, you don't really know what you're doing, and you sort of buy a few books. You can then go to the news agents, or you go to Amazon now, you buy some books, and I think you talk to a lot of people. I said we looked to America because there were very few people in the UK homeschooling at that point. So we looked to America, looked at what they were doing. So I don't know. I suppose for the first kind of while, we didn't do very much. We were just going to try to, I suppose, keep up with what they were doing at school or trying to do reading and things like that. But then about 6 months after we started homeschooling, we actually moved to where we live, and we're still living now because of the Catholic schools. We was a Catholic family, and we moved because of the schools of that area and because they were so good. And then we started homeschooling. So we started homeschooling, and then sort of strangely enough, we then went abroad for a couple of years. And then we started homeschooling in the way that there were American families there, and we started using the American High School Diploma because that's what they were using. So we, looked to that and looked to them. I suppose they all had these teenagers, and we really liked what they were doing and how they were learning. So I guess we sort of didn't do anything for about 6 months, and then we started following the American curriculum.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, a lot of people, I think, when they start looking into home education, even now, are using a lot of the American way of doing things just because it is so much more established there. Can you explain for people who might not know what the high school diploma is?
Okay, so it might take a bit of explaining. I think the baccalaureate is something that a lot of people have an idea of what that is, like the IB. So it's a bit like that. in that it's broader. So the British system, you do exams at 16 and you do exams at 18. The American High School Diploma is a 4-year program. And you don't get, so if you do it in 2 years, so at 16, you have nothing, you don't have any qualifications. You have to do it's like a 4-year program. And it's broader in the sense that you do English and maths all the way through up to 18. And you do sort of, sciences and things. So I guess in the UK, you'd get students who are at 16, between 16 and 18, only do sciences, for example, or the other way around, only do arts. And you won't get that with the American High School Diploma. So we like that. We like the broadness of the qualification.
And do you do exams with it, or is it not exam based in the same way that GCSEs and A levels are?
Yeah, it's a mixture. So people do it different ways. So some people will do GCSEs as part of it. So some people might do GCSE maths, for example, and that's a 2-year qualification. So they would get 2 high school diploma credits. The high school diploma is all based on credits. So you have to get a number of credits. So at the end of it, depends on which one you do, but it's around 25 credits you have to get. And each year is 1 credit. So if you do a GCSE in maths, for example, 1 year would be 1 credit, like year 10, and then year 11 would be another credit. So that'd be 2 maths credits. And you probably have to get about 4 maths credits for your high school diploma. So you do a variety of credits. So you might do a GCSE, and obviously that's going to be an exam. You might do courses where there's no exam. We've done a variety of things. We've done some things that I mark the work, and strangely enough, you're trusted to mark it, and the parents kind of believe to kind of give the kids the grade. So it can be no exams, which can be very appealing for some people. We've done a mixture. We've done some courses with exams and some courses with I mark the work.
Mm. And I think this is something that people sometimes worry about when they come to home education, of saying, oh, I could never teach my child X. And maybe you could just speak to how, as a home educator, you can bring in help. They could do an online course, or they could have a tutor. Is that what you've used for some of your subjects?
Yeah, so we've done, I think most people feel they can do some things well, so maybe you've got a degree in, some qualification in, or you did a job in something. So you think, right, okay, I can, teach my kids this. And then there might be some sort of exchange going on. I remember doing, various things that, different families over the years, that I taught something to their kids and they taught something to my kids. And lots of people do that. And, certainly in America, a lot more people are doing those kind of co-ops, and there's many more of those now in the UK than there used to be. Like many more groups and families doing things in conjunction with each other. You might get somebody that can teach, that's French, for example, and they'll teach French to the kids, and someone else can teach science because they're, sciencey person. So loads more. So we've done that over the years. And then, we've also brought in classes. So we've done a lot of Latin, for example, and so I can do my kids up to a certain level, but then, I'm done with Latin. So Latin, we paid for classes. So we've done a mixture, we've done a mixture of paid and, like life really, you can do a mixture of things depending on your skills and how things work out and how much money you've got at the time. Grandparents are great. Grandparents, aunts, uncles. It's a nice way for the grandparents to be with their kids, and particularly if they're not in the same locality. If they meet up to do French or whatever the grandparents' skill is, they meet up with the kids online. Piano, lots of grandparents I've seen doing piano, and that can just be, I know, marking work. I've seen lots of grandparents like marking their kids' work. It's just use whoever, and wherever.
Absolutely. I know a family where the grandfather was a financial planner, and he's taught all the children up to 18 in maths. He'd just retired, and it was a perfect fit.
Great.
And also that is a nice extension of how home education is so much more embedded into your family's life than traditional school, where someone goes off and you don't see them for the best part of their day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's lovely. It's so nice. And it's just so nice being with your kids. You enjoy your children, you enjoy their company, and in those teenage years, it's just great. You can talk about, I don't know, like at the moment, like the American election or whatever it is that's happening in the world and in life. You get a lot of time to discuss all these things at dinner, and you just have much more time to discuss all this stuff, it's so nice.
And can I just pick up on a point that you mentioned there about Latin? I know lots of home educating families who do Latin. We're very keen on Latin too. And I wondered why do you study Latin with your children?
So, I mean, so some of the studies of how kids with Latin go on educationally, like Latin seems to correlate with quite high academic scores. So there's been lots of studies out with people that study Latin and then do very well academically. So that's always of interest if you read those kind of studies. I've seen a couple of interviews with people who, I don't know if it's true or not, but this is what they claim. They claim that they can tell, like an 18-year-old that comes into university, they can tell whether that student has studied Latin or not. And that's
Mm.
like quite, I don't know, it's quite interesting. I don't know whether it's true, but it's quite interesting that they think that. So they perceive that it trains your mind in a particular way. Um, so I don't know. I suppose I heard things like that, and we were certainly interested. I really like grammar. I think grammar is, and I think Latin ties very much in with grammar. I think grammar is, and I know some people think it's, will not agree. I think it's a complete waste of time. But I think grammar is very important for like training your mind and training you how to think and understanding how language works. And I think it enables you to be able to write well and to be able to think well. So it all kind of ties in with that. Really, it ties in the classical education, which is kind of what we've done.
Mm. And so I think you've given listeners a good idea of what it looks like to kind of combine all these different credits, get this broad education under this umbrella of a high school diploma. And then what? So can they go straight to university with that? Or is there something else that needs to happen first?
Usually, so you can get, so in the UK, you can get your high school diploma converted to a British equivalent, and it converts to 5 GCSEs. And there's various reasons why it is that, and it's only that because it's something that you've finished at 18 generally. So it's not, it's almost like it's not worth an A-level equivalent, worth a GCSE equivalent, because it's not moderated, because of the exams and the non-moderation of the exams. It's only equivalent to 5 GCSEs. So yes, you do need to do something else. If you're going to work or college, then perhaps you don't need to do anything else. But if you want to go to university, then you do. There's something called an SAT exam, which is an English and maths exam, which would be a good one to do, an American exam. Or there's something called AP exams. It depends on which university you want to go to. Some universities will accept the high school diploma and the SAT. Some will want the high school diploma and they'll want these APs exams. And APs are equivalent to British A levels.
Okay, and that's advanced placement, right?
Yeah.
And so can you explain, so they're equivalent to an A level, and is that again something you can study at home? Do you need to do a course that's attached to them, and is there an exam at the end?
Yeah. So yes, there are. So APs have an exam. They're administered by something called the College Board. So the College Board is the EdXL or the AQA, of America. So they're the ones that administer the SATs, and they also administer the APs. There's about 40 subjects, 40 different ones that you can do. And the big plus for homeschoolers is that they're only 1 year. So it's a 1 year, it's a 1 year course, and you do the exam at the end of it. So my son's doing, he did one last year. He's going to do two this coming year. So he'll start them the end of August and he'll finish them. The exams are all the first 2 weeks of May. So it's quite a short year. It's a 30-week course that you do. But yes, definitely you can do them yourself. So you can, you can get access to a lot of resources from the College Board, a lot of video resources from the College Board. And you can absolutely do it by yourself. If you're, I don't know, like a history person, you could certainly help your kids through a history one, I guess. And the same way that you could with A levels, you could do it yourself, or with GCSE. But people generally would choose to have some help with at least one or two of them. So yeah, a combination perhaps.
And we know UK universities accept these qualifications from American students studying at high schools in America, but how do they look on British or other nationalities studying these exams? Is there a sort of question as to why they're studying the American system?
Mm-hmm. So I'd say that you have to. So it's fine. They are accepted without a doubt. My son's just at Sheffield studying maths at the moment. He's done American exams. I would say that you need to tell the university what you're doing. And because when you go through the UCAS application process, I think you can be overlooked, or you could be put in the kind of international pile, even though you've got British qualifications. So our experience, and it's very kind of anecdotal, because there haven't been thousands of people that have done this route. is that if you approach the university and tell them you're coming and tell them that you're you and you're applying for art history or you're applying for maths or whatever it might be, and you've got the qualifications, then they'll certainly, um, they've just been so positive. That's been our experience. Actually, been other people I know that have done it, they've been extremely positive about it. But it's certainly good to give the university a heads up that you are British and you are applying, just because it's unusual. You're British and you're applying with these American qualifications. But they've been remarkably positive about it. It's been, we know a lot of students now that have done this route.
And I suppose with all applications, and actually whether you're at school or being home educated, it's this kind of open dialogue between the place you want to go and the student, right? So that at 16 what qualifications you do need to get to go to the university that you're hoping to go to, whether that's A-levels or APs and SAT or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. I mean, just go to the open days and speak to the university people. They're very they're great. I mean, they answer emails. So if you write to them and say, I want to study this, and are these qualifications okay, or what grades do I need, then they'll answer. They're very good at answering kind of your emails, and if you go to the open days, they're very keen to meet students, and they're very interested with home educated students. I think there's a lot of students that are all the same. I think that if you're a bit different, you've got different qualifications, and you're often studying quite a lot by yourself, they quite like it. They're quite interested in you.
Yeah, I was going to say that. I think any differentiator is really helpful when you're applying to university amidst thousands and thousands of people who all look pretty similar on paper. And also that idea about making sure you know what you need to be working on. I mean, you hear this even, we had a family recently speak to us whose child was doing an A-level, and the school didn't sort of suggest that they looked early enough at the courses they wanted to do. They got to the end of their first year and said, great, I'm going to sit down and apply to university, and realised they needed further maths for all of the courses that they wanted to apply to, by which point it's kind of too late. So I mean, this is something that we talk about to parents the whole time on, being an involved parent in your child's education, whether you're home educating them or not, because, the school's responsibility ends often at 4:00, and certainly at the end of that summer term when your child is 18. So, as you say, this information's out there, make the effort to find out what's needed, right?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's I think most home educated parents tend to be, because you are involved, like the nature of, you're at home doing it. So you do tend to be I have a spreadsheet. Two of mine have gone to university in the States, and I've got 4 have gone to university in the UK and 2 have gone to university in the States. So I've got like a spreadsheet of all the different places and who has scholarships and how you apply, and so I'm trying to help them really.
Yeah, exactly. That sounds a super helpful spreadsheet to have. I definitely live and die by spreadsheets, so I would appreciate that. And we talked about the SAT. I think people here might have heard of that more than APs, but they might not know the ins and outs of it. Could you just explain a bit more about, is that curriculum based, or is it more skills, and is it basically testing skills or testing knowledge, or a bit of both?
Okay, so first of all, it's nothing to do with the SAT, the SAT test. It's the same initials, but it's nothing to do with the SAT test. The kids do it in school. So it takes about just over 2 hours. It's now digital, as of about a year ago. It's all digital. So you still have to go to the centre, but you bring your laptop with you and you do it on your laptop. You just book a seat online. And there's 2 parts to it. There's an English part to it and a maths part to it. The maths part to it is all using a calculator, and the level of it is probably a bit above GCSE, but certainly not A-level standard. And it's certainly an exam. They tend to have lots of repetition of same type of questions on you. It's not necessarily the best math student that's going to do well on that test. It's like the one who knows, I don't know, unusual formulas and particular formulas, and can apply them really quickly and can recognize, it's not really tricks, but just kind of recognize exam types of questions and things. I teach an SAT prep course and preparing for it at the moment. So that's the maths part of it. The English part of it, there's 2 sections to the English part. One part is the reading comprehension, but not on a passage that you've seen before. So it's not about studying Jane Austen or Macbeth or something, and then questions on that. It's an unseen passage. There'll be some on literature and some on poetry, and then one on sort of like numbers, like some sort of figures. And then the other section is grammar. But again, it's not grammar. I was explaining to my son this morning, actually, what it is. He's going to be doing it this year. It's not grammar like what's a past participle or what's a gerund or anything like that. It's you have a sentence and it'll be, does the comma come before the and? Does it come after the and? Should it be a colon? Should it be a semicolon? So you're given sort of lots of sentences like that. You're given sort of run-on sentences and where they should be, abbreviated. So it's almost like kind of using grammar in writing and being able to sort of look at writing and see whether it's kind of good or not. That one I feel you can really study for. You can almost get 100% because it's there's only a certain number of places you can put a colon or a semicolon, so you can train kids to recognize that. So you can, well, certainly by doing a course, so lots of practice, you can almost 100% on that one, I think. So yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Okay. But actually training for mastery is really rewarding for students. So maybe that's no bad thing.
Sure. Yeah.
And so in terms of how students can prepare for these exams, we've talked a bit about APs and how you could either study along with the sort of syllabus provided by the College Board or get a tutor or an online course. And with the SAT, it also sounds like there's practice that could be done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there's an organisation called Khan, the Khan Academy, and they do free courses. They're great. They so they do a lot of courses, and you do things yourself. And then so we were homeschooling, and then my kids wanted to go to university, and we found that they needed more. They needed these AP exams. So I had taught economics before, so I started teaching to a small group, AP microeconomics. And then the next year, some other kids wanted to do English, so we found an English teacher, and then we did English language. And the next year, obviously, more kids wanted to do economics. And the high school diploma program that my kids do, I'm a UK consultant for that program, so I have a lot of contact with kids in the UK doing American qualifications. So we just had more and more kids that were interested in these qualifications. So my friend and I, we set up an organization called Dumb Ox Learning. And we run 7 APs this academic year for sort of British students, but also American students. And, we have students from all over the place doing our courses. So we run SAT prep courses and we run AP courses, live online courses that will run a variety. Some the AP courses are 30 weeks and the SAT courses are about 15 weeks.
And how have your students done so far? Have you had any cohort go through an exam process?
So we have. We've had our first full year, and the results are on our website. So we were really pleased. I mean, it's really five's the highest that you can get. It's a numerical score between 1 and 5 for the AP exams, and we have our average is kind of well above the national average, and we've had an average of over 4 for several of our subjects last year. And the SAT, same thing. I've got results from students that are sending me their sort of tracking their scores through the program, and their scores have really kind of gone up. So yeah. I mean, the results are really important because people are doing these courses because they want good results. So we need to get good results, and we have been. So we're really pleased with that. We've got some great teachers.
Yeah, that's fantastic, and congratulations to you and your team, because that's really good.
Thank you.
Good outcomes. And lastly, I suppose I just wanted to ask why you think this route, the high school diploma, the SAT, the APs, might be better suited to homeschoolers than maybe what other options they might be doing in the UK or elsewhere.
Mm-hmm. Well, two things really. If you're homeschooling and you've made that crazy radical, big decision to homeschool, for me and for our family, if we could choose the worst time for our kids to go back into school, it would have been sixth form. That's when we really did not want our kids to go back into school. We wanted them to be at home till 18. It's been such a joy having them at home till 18. It's just been so amazing. We really wanted to have them at home for that period. So that's why the high school diploma bit works for us. And then, we could have done A-levels from home, but A-levels from home are difficult. It's very expensive, very difficult. It's very difficult to do the courses. It's very difficult to sit the exams. And just, it's also 2 years, it's a lot of work. They tend to be really all consuming. And the APs are they're equivalent to A-levels for British universities, but they only take 1 year and they're cheaper. And it just seems like, it's just like a win-win. Like, why would you not do them? It's so much better for UK students to do them. And it also just enables your kids to do other things, so they could have a part-time job, or, I had one kid that climbed for a day a week. They can do more. We've had families that do other, syllabuses. We've had families that do things like classical conversations that, they want to continue the other learning that their children are doing, or maybe they're very musical or very sporty. They just have a lot more time to continue that other interest. And the jump, the hoop jumping part tends to not be all encompassing during that time period. So yeah, it just seems like a win-win for us. It just seems like, why wouldn't you do them?
That makes sense. Helen, thanks so much for joining me. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me. Thank you.
And thank you for joining the Seatton Education Podcast. Whether you watched us on YouTube or you listened as a podcast, please like, comment and follow along as we discuss how home education can be an achievable alternative to conventional schooling.